Call the September 17 meeting to order.
Mayor,
Oh, you're welcome.
because it's so, you and the council work so well together.
Cameras on? Have the members of the committee had the opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting?
We have.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve?
There he is.
Second? Second. All in favor? Great, thanks. Mike, you want to lead off with the financial report?
Sure. I'll start with an update on the financial statement audit. So we made all the changes that we suggested last time when they gave us the draft. We issued the final drafts, and we have a bind copy of the drafts that's available to anyone that wants one. There's 7 copies there, so if you want some nighttime reading, feel free to take a look. For the financial update for this month, revenues are slightly over budget and expenses are slightly under budget due largely to timing, similar to past months. Miscellaneous operating revenue is also over budget due to the trade income and the capacity development grant that you received. Public fire protection is above budget due to the charges being billed in advance quarterly, so we have 9 months of revenue recognized year to date versus 8 months in the budget column. There were no principal or interest payments in August, and cash levels have remained relatively consistent due to that. Cash on hand at $4 million is sufficient to service existing debt and fund operations, but I'm happy to address any questions anyone has.
No questions? All right, thank you. This is the same as we saw last night.
There's
No,
one
this is
edit.
water.
There's an edit?
This is the water district.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, yeah,
Okay,
that's
water,
water,
okay,
exactly,
water, yeah.
water, yeah, water's issued final, yeah.
Take one of
It's
those.
the same but different.
Yeah,
Last month, we gave the water board the draft,
right.
and then we now have the final copy of the water audit.
Thank you.
Right, the one of these? No, not water
No.
district, thank you.
Yep.
I'm thinking it's a sewer.
Are we going to review this and then vote on it?
We voted on this last month
Okay.
as a draft, yep. The problem was on the sewer side is we didn't get the draft till the day of the meeting, so we didn't get it to you in advance, or at least the sewer trustees in advance,
Yeah.
and we didn't have it on the agenda, so
Okay,
we didn't vote on it last time.
thanks. All right, I'll open the meeting for public comment. Mr. Beal, have you?
I believe that the sections of the box culvert for Stetson Brook arrived yesterday morning at 3 miles an hour, backing all the way down Stetson Road, blocking traffic on the River Road forever. It caused a lot of discombobulation, but it's there. Somewhat earlier than expected, I think.
All right, thank you. Mike, you want to roll into new business?
Yep, new business. First thing on the agenda is Broad Street Extension. You may recall, some of you that have been on here since around 2024, we partnered with the city of Auburn to do 2 expansion studies, one for water, one for sewer. Those were completed last year. Those studies looked at areas of South Main Street, Vickery, Outer Broad, Hackett Road, Washington, several different areas that what would it take to extend public water and sewer into those areas. So we did that work, that was completed. Since that time, the city has been pursuing grant funds or any type of funds that they can secure to help extend those infrastructures out to open up more areas for growth. I know they've been working on their zoning and they've got that area set, so it's zoned to grow. So the city is right now, they were last year as well, they are in line for some congressionally delegated funds. Essentially, it's a $10 million project with a $2 million local match. This has made it through the Appropriations Committee, meaning that the committee approves it, they've signed off on it. If the budget gets passed as it's currently presented, this money will be in there for Auburn to extend water, sewer, and sidewalks from Outer Broad to Hackett, over to Washington, and then up Washington to Chassis. So it'd be quite an extension for both of the districts. In some preliminary talks with city planning officers, Eric Cousins, he had asked, would the district be in any position to contribute towards the local match, the $2 million. So In your packets, I put a couple of things. The sewer district has a main extension policy, and there are PUC rules. Chapter 60, section 6106 outlines what we would have to follow if we were going to make an investment in an extension. It's always been explained to me that Auburn and the Auburn Water District is a non-extending community. Essentially, we're a quasi-municipal entity. We don't have shareholders, we don't have investors. The money that we have is born from our ratepayers. So we don't use ratepayer money to fund extensions. We have always reviewed extensions when they're proposed. If they meet our specifications, they work within our system. We have accepted them after they've been extended, but we have never invested in those large extensions. And that's very consistent with all of the extensions that have occurred in the last 15 to 20 years. With that said, there are some provisions where we could put some upfront money as long as we set in place certain impact fees that would have to be paid by the new lots as they connect to water and sewer. So you can kind of read that in the attachment for the PUC rule on, kind of some of the ins and outs on that. One thing that I would like to do, I asked the sewer board for this last night, and I'm going to ask you tonight. I would like to work with our attorney. I would like to work with Veryl Dana. I'd like to look at the charters for the two districts. I'd like to look at our policy on sewer main extensions and the PUC rules on main extensions, and kind of sort through the ins and outs of this to determine, well, what can we do and what can't we do. We haven't officially been asked by the city yet. I'm assuming if the budget gets approved, it'll wind up going to city council, and we'll start working its way down the chain, and eventually this question will get asked. And it would be nice if I could answer this with a straight face and say yes, no, and if we can, this is the way we'd have to do it. I don't expect that this would be a big lift. I believe we have sufficient funds in our legal budget line items that we can do this. So I don't need you to vote on doing that. I just want you to all be aware and know that I'm going to engage with them and try to kind of sort through the different rules, policies, and regulations regarding investing in extensions.
So you say not a big lift. Do you have any idea where?
I haven't engaged with them yet. I was thinking, maybe 8 to 10 hours of their time to sort through, the different charters and policies and rules and offer some opinions and guidance on this. So, a couple of $1,000 split between the two districts.
Mhm.
I don't think.
Is there any indication what the city is seeking for funds from us, or shouldn't say us?
So we haven't had that. It's just something, just a preliminary discussion. Eric Cousins and I were talking on the phone, and he was telling me how this has made it through the appropriations committee, and he said, hey, when this develops, is there any possibility the district can contribute towards the local match? And I said, I kind of explained a couple of things that I just brought up. I said, it's kind of gray. I said, but we could potentially, if we set impact fees on any future lot, one of the caveats is we would only be able to capture revenue from that for the first 10 years of the extension. So they're anticipating that this extension could yield 500 to 2,500 new residential units. But is that going to take, I don't think it's going to happen the first 2 years. Would it happen within the first 10 years? And would we be able to recoup our funds? Some of the other points that we have to consider, expanding our infrastructure, it's not as big of a lift on the water side. I actually would be, one of the biggest things that we're waiting for some clarification on our engineer on is we have a decommissioned water tank down in New Auburn. It's actually up off Ipswich. It was shut off about 15 years ago and kind of abandoned in place. It used to compete with our other water storage tanks, and we had water age issues and troubles filling both of them at the same time. So our system's been better off without it. But with this bigger extension, 2,500 new units, for us to have the firefighting capacities, I think we need that tank back. The good news is it's still there. It might need some work, but My question is, would we need that tank? So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, with additional infrastructure comes additional O&M costs, right? So we're pumping more water, treating more water, we're maintaining more mains, 2,500 new water meters, we're, you're expanding our system by a third, really, 2,500 units. So anyways, just more to consider as part of expansion like this.
And it could potentially end up only being 500.
It could, might be 100.
It's not there's no reassurance, there's no crystal ball we can rub to know whether these are going to be apartments or going to be homes. And obviously, a connection to an apartment facility is, that's one connection.
Yeah, depending on how they lay it out, very, very well could be.
Yeah, so, but I think the board needs to be very careful not to get ahead of yourself. So a few comments I would make. I would not necessarily, the description of where this is gonna be doesn't align with the city council's understanding of where these mains are gonna be. But for this purpose, I don't think it makes any difference. I think Mike's point that it's in the South Main Broad Street area is correct. I think that if the federal budget were to pass as it is today, the city will get $8-9 million towards doing this. Whether that happens or not is just a crapshoot at this point, right? Because it's just as likely as not they're going to shut down the federal government. It's not obviously going to be over this project, but we are like, it's in there. If it passes, at some point we'll get it, but it was in there last year, and the agreement that Congress made to move the budget was to strip out all the earmarks. So there was no CDS money included. That we don't know. I think what the board needs to focus on is this question about, forget about this project, right? But we still need the answer to, under what circumstances can the Auburn Water District expend funds for an extension of the network? Because it's CDS money today, but it could be something else tomorrow, right? And this is a little tricky because, clearly you could have an extension and a developer says, oh yeah, I'm 700 feet from the water main, and I'm gonna pay the money because it's, it's worth it to me to pay the money to rent out to you. Clearly the city could say, oh, this is achieving some goal the city has, and the city could bond this and basically say to the water district, hey, in fact, we want to hire you to run the water main further, and we could do that. After that, it gets very, very murky because it's unclear, I think, and I think Mike would agree to this, it's unclear exactly what the details of this general understanding that utilities, water and sewer utilities can't use ratepayer funds to extend the line. So we need a better understanding of that. And this whole issue of impact fees, because that's how this was done before, like on East Hardscrabble Road, the city and the water district worked, I don't remember the details, but there were impact fees for folks. The problem is the last legislature severely limited impact fees. How that applies to a water and sewer, quasi-municipal water and sewer utilities is unclear to me because it isn't, so it used to be, I'll just explain this in the terms of the city. The city could charge impact fees and you had 10 years to expand those, to expend those monies on some public purpose. So we don't really do that much in Auburn. Lewiston does it more, but I use Westbrook as an example. Westbrook has been charging an impact fee for every building permit that's been issued. That money's been going into a separate fund. They have their own water and sewer division, like Lewiston does, doesn't really matter. But they've been putting that money in a separate fund to expand their water and sewer network. And, you know, some of these people are getting building fees are already on water and sewer. But, you know, it's achieving this goal for the city. They can't do that anymore, because the new law says that you can charge an impact fee, but it has to be directly, the service you're gonna be providing has to be directly related to the person paying it, and you must encumber the money within 360 days. So it doesn't mean you have to get the project done, but you gotta encumber the money, and then, you know, so A, we need to know if that change also impacts Auburn Water and Sewer. And, you know, then how do you do this? Because even getting the contract encumbered in 360 days is pretty unlikely. Especially if you have to do engineering. You might get the engineering job done, so I think it's important for us to get guidance from legal about under what conditions can we spend money, what are the current rules now about impact fees, so we know what we're doing, whether it's this particular project the city asked Mike about, or anything else.
Yeah. I'll say what I said last night, which is, to clarify it, is the way that the Public Utilities Commission looks at this is that you have two kinds of utilities. You have the investor-owned utilities with shareholders who finance the activities of the utility, and they're taking a risk and they expect a return on their investment. So in that circumstance, the investor-owned utilities can expand their system, and if they lose money, it comes out of the shareholders' pockets. A municipal entity has no shareholders. So I don't know exactly what the conditions the commission would apply to municipally owned utility, what kinds of expansion they would allow. I think it's where we landed last night in the sewer district discussion was that let's find out so that we can know exactly what the terms are and figure out where to go from there. So, and then after that, it's just we talked about, it's how much is it going to cost? That's the numerator, and then how many billing units are you going to have after that? That's the denominator, and that'll give you your rate.
And, you know, the city's gonna look into this too, right?
Yeah.
Because there's all kinds of questions about that. Can you just have a special tax assessment against the lot? If you run the sewer and water main up there, they're gonna have to connect, and if they're vacant and they build something, they're gonna have to connect. So, we don't know the answer either. So we're gonna find out on the city side, what options does the city have? And then between the city and the water and sewer district, depending on what the project is, we can all figure out what the best method to use is for a particular project.
And this isn't a new question, you know, we're faced with it right now because of this potential project. This comes up every couple of years. You know, we were talking about, you know, a development in the gravel pit, and it was, well, that would need pump stations, that would need expansions of the system, would we need a water tank over there? And inevitably, people look back at the water district like, hey, this is expanding your system, are you gonna put money into this? Like, no, we're not, you know, and so again, having this, I don't even know if I can. And, you know, there's also some rules in there that we can't, you know, take over ownership of something if it's only, like, you wouldn't extend a main a mile down the road to just serve Eric's house.
Oh, man.
You know, that's not the definition, that's not the definition of a public main, right? If your main was going in and every house between Eric's and the start point connected, or could connect, that's a public main. That should be owned and controlled by the district. You know, so there's other little rules like that in there that, not that that's what's being proposed here in South Auburn, but we want to know that. How does that work? And so yeah.
Well, I think it's tricky too, because you've got to replace so much main per year.
Right.
And adding to it, adding to your burden,
Right.
doesn't help, you know. But
So
anyway.
so not to get hung up on any of this, because you bring up a valid point, Jeff, let's not get hung up on where we are today. But if this was going today, potentially how many connections could be made? Just based on,
We don't know.
not based on future construction, but based on the houses it would serve.
We don't know, and the reason we don't know is when you go, so congressional directed spending isn't that specific. I mean, it can be, but typically on infrastructure projects, you don't go into them and say, these mains end here and we're gonna run this 1,237 and a half feet up this street, right? It's more, the city wants to extend the growth area out into an area, and these are the main streets, and that's what, it isn't, we won't know for certain until we get the funds, and then planning, and, you know, part of it might be what it costs, right? If Mike says, well, we could run water and sewer out here, and you can get this far, but if you go up this street, we got a blast for 2 months, and it's gonna eat up half your money, so we don't know for certain yet.
So it could be Broad Street, could be South Main Street.
Could be
Well, that here
Hickory.
is both, but,
Yeah.
you know, and while all this is going on, prices keep going up, right? So you're probably gonna get less than what you originally thought you wanted to do.
Now, years ago, when the city of Lewiston paid the Auburn Water District for the land that we own for a 50% share, it was $1 million.
Mhm.
But we used the $1 million to extend water and sewer out Washington Street past the turnpike, the industrial park road there.
Yeah.
Kitty Hawk.
Kitty Hawk?
Kitty Hawk,
Huh,
yeah, that's how that Kitty Hawk got built,
I didn't know that.
with
Huh.
that $1 million. So I don't know.
But
how-
that was before the statutory change.
Right, and we had $1 million that the city of Lewiston had paid for 50% share of the
Right.
land, that Auburn, you know, water payers had been paying for 100 years or so. And that's how that got built out there. And I don't know if those people got billed extra to connect or not, I don't remember that.
No, I mean, we have lists of East Hardscrabble is one of them. Taylor Pond was another one. Taylor Pond was one of those, that was all funded by, you know, I'm assuming the district chipped in a large chunk, 13 pump stations were put around Taylor Pond. The normal connection fee is $1,550. Well, if you connect on Taylor Pond, it's over $5,000 because of that investment that was put into getting the public sewer around the pond.
I see.
So same on East Hardscrabble, if somebody connects up there right now, I have a formula that we have to look up. We have to charge this to the customer and we pay it back to the city because
Right.
they bonded that and made that investment.
I see.
So that's where I think we're all in agreement, you know, we need to get some answers on this. And I think going to the attorney, because how complicated it can be and it's mostly faceted with PUC and sewer and the different charters, I think it would be good to get this answered.
The pressure that's gonna be on the municipalities is that, I was just at a meeting with the House Chair of the Housing and Economic Development Committee last week, so folks will have heard about LD 2003 in the last legislature, and LD 1829 made all these changes about, really to spur dwelling development. Doesn't matter, it could be a single family, could be apartment buildings, whatever. And so what's that's caused is that a lot of those things are tied to being on public water or sewer or in a growth zone. And this doesn't affect Auburn that much, but it does affect other places. There's places in the growth zone today, there's no public water and sewer. And we'll see what happens as we go through the comprehensive plan, but the current comp plan committee, which several of us are on, will be looking, coming right up here where these growth zones are, and it's very likely, given the structure the legislature's put in place, that if they identify areas in a growth zone that aren't currently on public water and sewer, then the city's going to then say, okay, well, what's our plan to get there? Right, so this may come up with more frequency than it has in the past.
Yeah.
So I sense the answer to your question is yes.
Good.
Okay.
No, we'll definitely, that's good. We'll get,
Yeah.
expect to see this on coming agendas as we get these questions answered.
All right, great, thank you. So Stetson Road.
All right, I have to apologize for this one. This one completely caught me out of left field. Over the winter months, this past winter, the city was working on designing a new culvert structure for Bob and Mill Brook on Stetson Road. We have our typical normal conversations between our departments and their engineering departments, providing them information on our infrastructure. When the Lewiston project was kicked off this summer and they're, installing a new transmission main for Lewiston, I don't know if their equipment, their trucks, their traffic aggravated the existing culvert, but it failed. And the culvert essentially came unzipped, it collapsed, the road was shut down. And it put the design of the project into hyperdrive on the city's standpoint, because now you get this major road, these medical facilities, you've got construction already happening on North River Road. We got to get this designed and in, and if we could do it in this construction season, here we go. So right about the time of our last meetings, I went to a kickoff meeting the day after our trustee meetings last month, and I got at the kickoff meeting and they're talking about, oh yeah, the water and the sewer, we're gonna hold the mains over the culvert during the project. I'm like, that's gonna be a sight to see. I'm gonna put I-beams out there, and I was like, are you guys sure the water main's over the culvert? That seems like, how much room is there? There was only 3 feet. I was like, oh, there's not enough cover for a water main. And so lo and behold, we got looking at the information, yeah, the water main didn't go over the culvert, it went under. And, we did provide that information back this spring, but again, when it went into hyperdrive, that information never made it to the engineer who was designing the project. So the bottom line is the water main was in major conflict with the new designed structure, which had already been ordered and was showing up, and we had to act like now. And so last week, we were working some really long days, and through Sergeant Corp, we've relayed and replaced the water line underneath the soon-to-be Bob's Culvert on Bob and Mill. At that time, I had to make kind of a split second decision on this. This all kind of came together in a week. Normally, I would run this type of stuff through the trustee boards, but really didn't have a whole lot of options. They have a very tight window of doing work in that stream bed. The water main is an 8-inch main. If you guys remember, there's a project that's already approved on Stetson Road for like 160 plus or minus units up there. And there's other areas on Stetson Road that there could be future growth. And I am concerned about the 8-inch main that's kind of dead-ended up there now. Anyways, so when we put the main in, I had them put 12-inch under the brook. So in the future, if we upsize the water main on Stetson, we already have that larger pipe. So it is kind of what it is. The cost to us is going to be around $21,000. That's everything, but it'll wind up going into our water system maintenance. But we do have a new pipe under a soon-to-be new box culvert.
Has the city offered to reimburse the district for the cost of the
They are sharing in the-
because it wasn't our fault?
Well, they're sharing in the expense of it. The city has to be very careful of, they can't use their money to put in water pipe. But some of the construction work, Sergeant Corp, the contractor, can do the work to put the pipe in. So essentially, they're splitting the cost of this with us, even though they're not paying for the water pipe itself or the water pipe installation.
How large is this new culvert, this box culvert? Is it very large?
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
That's the one that followed on the turnpike
Yep.
yesterday.
Yeah, I think so. Steve was mentioning it earlier. Yeah.
Several sections.
Yeah, a lot of it was getting delivered yesterday and the day before, some of it. So yeah, it's been coming in this week. So yeah, so anyways, it's more of an FYI. Again, I didn't get prior approval, but I didn't really have a lot of time to make any decisions on this. It was like happened now.
You made a smart decision.
So I was glad we were able to upsize it anyways.
Okay. Next.
Personnel Policies and Procedures Handbook. The district's handbook was last updated in 2023. Since we last updated, at any time I wind up getting into the manual and I see something that, whether it be a wording change or something that needs to be updated, I make little notes. In addition to that, we have that paid family medical leave which is going into effect in May of 2026. That is not defined in our policy manual. There's other state laws and things that have changed that aren't in our manual. So every couple of years, we need to do an update. The last time we did an update, we used an HR Consulting Maine is the name of the company. Betsy Olton's her name. She did our last update to make this as quick as possible, and I think the easiest route would be to just use her again and get our manual, go through it. What I'd like to do is bring this back to both boards in a draft form in either October or November. We can go over the changes. If it's all good, I'd like to get this adopted before the end of the year. Typically with work like this, we run this under legal, and again, we have sufficient funds for both districts to do this. So again, it's more of an FYI that this is gonna be, happening, and to expect that either October or November, we'll be looking at proposed changes. So, and at the end of it, the boards will have to adopt the manuals.
All right,
So that's that.
thanks. Terms and conditions?
All right, terms and conditions update. So yes, I appreciate, I know this is kind of like the audit, it's some interesting reading. We did send that out to everybody after the last trustee meetings. What I had sent out was our current terms and conditions. And we have to do this in a very specific way with PUC. And I put some of that in the packet so you can kind of see the fact sheet on what you need to do as a water district to update your terms and conditions. So we have to follow a certain protocol. The draft that's in your packets has all of the comments that we've put in and all of the proposed changes to our document. Another thing that we have to vet out is what will this cost our customers? So we have to do a calculation, which we've done, to make sure that the fees that get applied to our customers through these terms and conditions don't make up more than 1% of our total rate. So we've run that, we're well below the 1%. Really what we're just trying to do is, we were charging $10 for a trip fee to go turn somebody's water off. The average hourly rate with benefits is $55 an hour, and that doesn't include the truck. So if we go up and do a trip to shut somebody's water off, $10 doesn't really even get them out the door here anymore. So all we've really tried to do is just make sure that we reflect actual costs. We were charging for an overtime call-in, we were only charging like $60. Again, it costs a lot more than that to have a person come in after hours to do something. But so again, we've just tried to, we're not trying to make money on this, we're just trying to cover costs. Also, there was a lot of, if you looked at the old terms and conditions, they were very hard to follow. So I was really happy with, how we had revised these, reorganized them, and, the table of contents is much clearer, and it just kind of flows a lot better. So I know I did get some comments back from Dennis. I think we were able to address 90% of those and incorporate that into the draft. The way we move forward with this now is we submit this to PUC with a proposed go-live date. It has to be at least 30 days after we send it to them. We're looking at, with all the other stuff we have going on with our utility billing software, we would like to submit this and ask for an effective date of December 1st, 2025. That way we'll be on the new utility billing software. I don't want everything hitting at once, it gets too confusing. But I don't know if anyone else had any comments on the drafts or the changes, or, yeah.
So Mike, you identified $60 an hour as your base rate.
Yep.
And also, I think it's 2 hours minimum on the call out.
After hours, yeah.
Correct, okay. First of all, are we paying, is the district paying 2 hours if we have to call out a person?
Yes.
So it's not a 4-hour minimum?
No, it's 2.
2, okay. And secondly, is $60 an hour what our true cost is per man?
The rates we put in here were our true costs. Yep.
Okay.
It was an average of our working staff. It was an average.
So you're charging $60 an hour, and depending on who you call out, your cost might have been $70 an hour, it might have been $50.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
That's what we did, yep. And that's, we actually, the nice thing about this, terms and conditions, these are public. And you can see every terms and condition revision ever done in the state by every utility. So it was very easy for us to pull up and what did they do with this water district? What did they do with that water district? And we actually printed off like 7 or 8 different copies. We had them all in here. We didn't make up any language. We didn't make up anything. We took from other water entities and districts that already had these approved. So we don't want to send something to PUC and get it sent back quicker than we sent it to them. We're just trying to,
Yep,
yep.
good
So,
way to do it.
so, and I know every district's different, as far as pays, benefits and all that, but are we pretty much in line with other districts?
Yeah, we're right there, yep.
Okay, all right, so we could defend this easily if
Very easily, yep. And we're below the 1% of our rates,
it's
so it's,
done. Okay, thanks.
So I made a bunch of nitpicky more edits to it.
Okay.
I marked it
All
up
right.
on the paper copy, and
Perfect.
so the committee knows where it is. Really, the one thing that I noticed is at the beginning in the definitions, you say that Auburn Water District appears as either the utility, the district, or AWD. And it's good to just settle on one. So it doesn't matter to me which one it is, but it should, but I suggest district, because when I went through, that's the one you use most.
yep,
But you can see where you grabbed a section from someplace else and that place used utility,
yep,
so it suggests that. And then for and the same nitpicky thing that I suggest is for the PUC, it is either the commission or MPUC. And you use MPUC quite often for like MPUC chapter 7. So I just do that to make it consistent. Then you're only using one word for each entity, and it's easier for people to read.
The language is same.
But other than that, I think it's a lot more clear, like you said, than it was before. So, yeah,
good. That was our goal, and no, we'll get those. Like I said, there's a lot going on this fall with our utility billing software changes and a lot of other stuff. I don't want to overwhelm anybody, so even if we took us a little while to do this, which it won't, we could always say, well, January 1 implementation.
Yeah.
But we're definitely going to move forward.
But I think it's good to submit it.
Good. Perfect.
All right.
Awesome.
All right, there we go, the old business. Yeah, old business.
Just a couple of FYIs, keep you up to date. So the facilities assessment that we're working on with Weston and Sampson, that's all going very well. At last month, I reported we had the garage facility. We were vetting that with staff. We've gotten all the staff comments back to the consultant. We now have in front of us all the building layout stuff, so what trustee rooms and office spaces and workspaces is going to look at in the new facility. I was just going through the comments, those from staff this afternoon. We're going to be sending that back to the consultant. They've already, I just got right before this meeting what the garage, they incorporated our comments, they revised the garage sketch. So it's all going very well. I anticipate that we'll wrap up this kind of back and forth of comments probably by the end of this month potentially. And then we'll be looking at preliminary design layouts. Once we know the square footage we need, you can start looking at, well, how would you lay this thing out and what are the different configurations? And that'll really help tell us like, well, how much land would we need? Where could we put this? Could we put it here? Would we have to put it somewhere else? So it's progressing well, and it's just kind of an update there. Water quality update. The water quality in the lake is really good. Clarity is great. Algae counts are down. Phosphorus levels are low. Everything is great. The only kind of bad news is it's been very dry, and the lake elevation is pretty low. I don't know if you've gone up Route 4 and looked out. It used to be the little island there. The island's getting bigger. So the water level's down, which we don't really like because as that water level goes down, it exposes more shoreline, and it's the shoreline that's a little softer material that's used to being underwater. So now that it gets more exposed, if you have wave action, it tends to stir up a lot more, whereas opposed to having the normal rock level where your water's lapping against rocks, you're now into that softer stuff. So I don't know, we all do a rain dance. We're in good shape. We're not like worried about our water levels. We have a lot of water in Lake Auburn, but, you know, it's concerning what this does long-term, you know, if this sloughing in the shoulders, if we do get a lot of windstorms this fall without the elevation coming up, that could lead to phosphorus and other issues, so we're monitoring it.
Mike, I forget the location, but there was, before, there is a location on the lake where there is erosion happening.
Salmon Point.
And we were gonna approach that and deal with it. Where are we with that?
So the Watershed Commission has solicited proposals from 3 different engineering firms to design a solution to that erosion. So it's essentially on the north side of Salmon Point, there's a cove in there, kind of in between Salmon Point and Tabors. And in that cove, there was a couple of different landslides that had occurred at some point in the last, 2 to 3 years. And those landslides, again, have loose soils that are just sloughing into the lake. And if you get the right wind that pounds in that direction, it'll continue to cause more erosion. So the tricky part is you can't just walk an excavator in there today. It's not, there's no road there. So how do you get in there and fix it, and what do you fix it with? So that's what the engineer is working on. So the commission is right on top of that, and as we, that's certainly something we're gonna have to monitor if they're, how are we gonna fund it, when the fix comes. The good news is I'm really hoping that this will qualify for something like a 319 grant. It falls right in line, and we're actually applying for a couple other grants right now that potentially we could get this all funded through grants. So that's the route we're going right now.
Thank you.
So, yep.
Thank you, great.
So yeah, I think that's that.
Now, weren't those projects, didn't those projects used to be done by Auburn Water and Lewiston?
Yep, we've done several projects like that, but this one, and we could potentially do that project this time, but we do need to have it engineered and designed. Well, what is the solution? What do we have to put in? Once we see what the project is, if they can specify what material and how to fix the problem, we could look at either our crews or Lewis and crews doing the work. But we need to know.
I guess my question is, there's nobody on the commission that's an engineer or has the expertise that you or Kevin or Erica have to oversee that project. So I don't understand. At the commission meeting last week, I didn't want to ask because I'm a newbie there, but it seemed to me like that project should not be planned by them. It should be planned by us. And I don't know when this change happened. Before, it was always done by us.
I think the project could still be done by us, but you're talking about the design.
The
That part.
whole planning of it, the observation that there's erosion, there's a problem at the lake, any problem along Lakeshore Drive was always taken care of by us and Lewiston, and usually us, and then we bill Lewiston or get them to participate. Now it seems like this commission has taken over a lot of, basically construction details that they don't have the expertise to do, and I was a little bit confused about that.
Yeah, I've only been secretary to the commission and now clerk for the last 10 years, a little bit, 11 years, I guess. And this is kind of the way that it's operated since I've been involved.
Really?
We
Okay.
still would, like, the last big project that we had that had to be designed was the Basin Dam, the outlet. There was erosion that had occurred on the side slopes, and you can't just go put any material into that.
Right.
So we had gone through an engineering firm, they designed what needed to be done for the fix, but then we went in with our crew and we did the work. And then we billed Lewiston for half of it, just like you said. And that could very well happen in this project, but the actual design needs to be done by a consultant that specializes in shoreline erosion. Because if you asked me to do it, I would do fabric and riprap, but fabric and riprap might create, if those waves hit it, it might be more detrimental to the areas beside that. So you kind of have to have these specialized entrapment barriers so that when the wave action hits it, it dissipates the energy so it doesn't just get pushed beside it. So I think that's where we're looking at an engineer that specifies in it to Okay, you design it and we'll figure out the project.
Just to follow up on Bruce's point, so it's unclear to me. So what's within the scope of the Watershed Protection Commission, what's in the scope of the utility? They've taken this on, they're doing an RFP for the design. Do they have the authority to say, we're gonna get that back, we're gonna go out and bid it, and we're gonna decide who's gonna do the work, and they're gonna do the work, and they don't have any money. They're gonna send a bill to folks, and it's unclear to me that the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission has the wherewithal to even manage this stuff.
Me too. That's what I was.
It's not, so I get it that, you know, I've only been involved in this stuff in a couple of years, but in the last couple of years, it's clear to me that the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission, in general sense, thinks their responsibility is the land around the lake and how that affects water quality. I mean, they've told me directly before, they don't have anything to do with the water in the lake. That's the water district's responsibility. So, but this is a group that meets like 4 times a year for a couple hours, and so there's not a lot of clarity about who's on first here and who's gonna do what. I'm not saying it shouldn't be the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection
Neither am I,
Commission, but
So, you know, trails and houses and all of that, you know, dealing with residents and all of that, I think that is clearly their expertise, and I think they're really well equipped to do a good job with that. When it comes to a construction project like this, you know, where you have an engineer, you know, no matter, right, Pierce, CDM, whoever the engineering, you know, you guys know how to read this stuff. I'm not sure that, and maybe the people, you know, on the commission know how to read it too, but I was just surprised that this was not being handled by either Kevin and Erica's department or by your department, or our department.
So it raises the question, they're doing this, but they're not doing the culvert job on Lake Shore Drive. I mean, where's the dividing line, who has what responsibility?
Yeah, it's always been, I don't know where that line kind of floats around what's operational and what's watershed, right? And,
Do you understand?
I totally understand what you're saying, and I get, you know, I don't think, these proposals aren't gonna go to the commissioners and then ask them to select the best one. I think this type of dialogue needs to happen at the commission level to say, well, operationally, how are we gonna fund this? Is this gonna be funded through the commission? If we can get grants to fund this project, then I could see wholeheartedly that it would be funded through the commission. But if this is gonna take, we're gonna have to borrow money to get this work done, or we're gonna have to use up, you know, $100,000 out of a sinking fund to do this, or something like that, you know, that needs to kind of go back to the utilities to say, this is more operational, and how are you two utilities gonna fund this project? So I think that's a dialogue that really should occur, you know, and that would be good to sort out, but.
Maybe I'll bring it up.
Yeah.
I can bring it up.
No, it's good.
All right, so when's the next meeting? Is it November?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
plan for November, but there might be one in October and one in December.
Workshop, yeah.
Yeah.
I could see us having a workshop in October. There's quite a bit going on.
All right, so infrastructure planning.
Yes, moving on to the, did I miss something? I've got,
You did water quality.
Yeah.
Or infrastructure planning.
I didn't have that on the agenda, but I put it in the packet.
Yep.
Yeah, the infrastructure planning study, that's going really well with CDM Smith. You know, we pulled together a sampling plan for the lake. We've actually got it implemented. We're collecting the data. We're gonna be monitoring the data throughout several seasons. This is what's gonna help us to determine, okay, what direction is the lake going in long-term? Should we be extending intake pipes? When should we be planning for filtration, and what steps should we be taking? So that's going very well. So
When is the proposed study date?
the completion of the study,
Yeah.
I believe that was this spring, so spring of 2026.
You asked it that at the comp plan meeting, and I couldn't think.
It was an 8-month monitoring period to catch the different seasons. So, water quality varies throughout the year.
So that'll be fine for the comp.
Good timing, yeah. And one of the other things was the NPI wasn't on here, but I
Yes.
wonder where that is.
That's going very well. Ray Pierce is making good progress. We've done all the survey work. They're starting to model, now that we have all the data, the flow data through the culverts, the elevations of the lake and the sediment and everything in that area. They're now modeling it, so they'll be determining what size culvert to replace this with. Once that's done, you can start on the design. I just had a catch-up email session with the DOT engineer who's kind of overseeing the MPI work. He's very happy with our progress. This project the final design is supposed to be done by the end of this year, get the project out to bid this winter, construction through next summer and potentially into the spring of 27. Steve brought up a good point. Depending on the size of this, it could be a corrugated metal pipe, it could be a box structure. Box structures, sometimes you can't get a hold of them, right away. Sometimes there's a delay. So, at any rate, that'll be determined as we flesh out the design. So, but it's going very well.
All right, thank you. Project update?
Yeah, I did not do an activity report. I apologize this month. There's just been a lot going on between all the construction stuff. The DOT projects out on Center Street, the paving, that has been a really difficult project for us. It's been very slow. There's been a lot of delays. The contractor is making up batches of hot top, and the batches have been failing the DOT spec. So essentially, there was about 4 weeks of delays, which really kind of hurt us because our water crew was planning to start Spring Street, but I can't do Spring Street if I need 2 or 3 crew members out raising water gates, and I don't want to start a project and they get pulled away to have to go pull, So anyways, it's been very difficult. They are paving now. It's at night, so we've had 2 crew people working nights coming in to do the water gates. I'm very disappointed. Went out for a drive this morning, and you can kind of feel like some washboarding in the brand new hot top. So that tells me they're probably gonna have to grind this all off. It's not. I would be surprised if DOT accepts this. The new hot top that was just put down doesn't feel great when you drive over it. So more issues. Mechanics Row, here's the polar opposite. This project was Shaw Brothers. They did a phenomenal job. They were top notch to deal with our crews, raising all our sewer structures, raising all of our gate valves. They communicated with us when they needed something. We reacted. When they promised something, they delivered. That project is done. It's completely done from our perspective. The pavement's all down, the gates and everything was raised accordingly. So that project's gone and done. Spring Street, this is, again, I mentioned the water main replacement there. So our crews did wind up starting about 3 weeks ago. We did 2 weeks of nights. We did that mainly because of the traffic between Court Street and the Hannafords. And 2, there's a very large apartment building that's there that to coordinate the shutdown, there's a bunch of businesses on the first floor, a hair salon. It was very difficult to set up temporary water, so we just did the shutdown at night. So we got the night work done. We essentially have put in about, at this time, I know at the time I did the pack, it was only 300 feet. We're up over 800 feet that we've done so far. They did another 200 feet today, and they should be wrapping this project up in the next 2 weeks. So that'll be our last big infrastructure project this summer, and then we're moving on to LCR stuff for the remainder of the construction season. So that's going well. I do want to make note in your project update about some hydraulic issues. I believe we have some closed valves in our system. If we knew where those were, we'd go out and open them right now, but we don't. I believe last year when we had the Hotel Road project going on, the contractor had hit our water main like 6 times in that project, which caused main breaks, and people are going out there in emergencies and shutting things down, and I don't think they got all the valves reopened after, because we've seen some hydraulic issues. So we do have a hydraulic model of our system, that we're gonna be using that to try to help us determine where the closed valves could be to help us, because we have thousands of valves. And where do you start? Do you just start checking them all? It'd be nice if we could use the model to say, the only thing that would cause these problems that you saw would be these valves right here. So that would limit it. So we're gonna be doing work on that to try to figure that out. It's not something we planned on doing, but it's something that's, if we don't get this fixed, we could deal with premature main breaks and other types of issues, because, pressure's building in the system when we're trying to fill the hard scrabble reservoirs, which telling us we have a restriction. So we're working on that. So that's all I had on project updates.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay. A motion to move into executive session.
I move that we move into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA at 4056A to discuss a personal matter.
Sorry.
All in favor?
I knew that motion.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Tiffany.
Thanks, Bob. Have a good night.
Thank you all. Thank you. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Thanks. Entering the lake was good?
Yes.